You are now listening to Rings Kings Boxing World Flash Report.
All right, shout out to Ring Kings Boxing, Big Q in the building, representing the Ring Kings Boxing Nation. Shout out to you guys. Bit of news to talk about in this episode of Ring Kings Boxing, so please feel free to strike the like button, hit the share button as well. We up in this thing, Ring Kings Boxing, representing the Fight family, man. And this first one, man, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff happened this weekend, man. We're going to just jump right into it. This is one of the things to kind of talk about the Isaac Cruz retaining the title after majority draw with Lamont Roach. I know a lot of people probably ended up watching this fight, man. And the reality is Lamont Roach was robbed in this fight, right? You can look at the cards. I thought that Roach actually won this fight. You can see the disappointment on his face at the end of it. But that's one of the things that you have to learn in the fight game. You cannot rely on the referees. If it's about handling business, you got to put these people away in the right way. And Lamont didn't do that. And ultimately, he stands up as a fighter that's feeling pretty pissed about it. And, we're going to talk about it. But let's hear from Lamont Roach and what his thoughts was at the end of the press conference. Here we go.
Honestly, obviously I proved that I'll fight anyone. Again, this is not my natural weight. And I moved up again and fought a tough competitor and Isaac Cruz. But 2 times in a row, fight my opponent and fight the judges. It's something we got to do about it. I think I won. And I think I definitely outboxed them. All I need is a even playing field. I'm going to come out there and show my skills. I'm going to show my grit, my will, everything else. And not to mention, I think I broke my hand in like the 5th round or something like that. So
if we have questions for Lamont Roach, raise your hand.
That's pretty much Lamont Roach's thought process in this fight. And to be honest with you, man, he talking about his draw to Tank Davis and now to Pitbull Cruz. And the thing is, he's talking about fighting the judges, and that's true. He did. It keeps happening, bro. But because you got to put these guys away. You cannot leave it into the hands of these officials because you never know what might happen. We know about the fact that Pitbull did hit Lamont Roach and his glove touched the canvas that counted as a knockdown, but also the referee did take a point away from Pitbull Cruz. But the rest of the fight, Lamont fought a good fight. He outpointed him in many of the rounds. But in the end, watching the fight game, man, you got to put these guys away. You can't sit up here and rely on the judges at any capacity. And he's looking sorrowful faced it. He busted his hand. Same thing Tank Davis did up against Pitbull Cruz. He said he busted his hand too. So there it is. They'll have to do it again. But it's for Lamont Roach. Feel bad for the brother. But in the end, you got to take care of business when it represents itself, when it shows up, right? Anyway, Isaac Cruz retains the title majority draw. That happened in San Antonio. And of course, Cruz keeps the WBC interim junior welterweight title. And it's one of those things. Judges scored the fight 115-111 for Cruz, and the other 2 judges had it even at 113 all. The fight was even early. The Cruz scored the 3rd round knockdown to inch ahead, but Roach made a strategic adjustment, seemingly taking control of the second half of the fight. And he really did fight a really solid fight against Pitbull Cruz. Pitbull Cruz has one motion that's to come forward and take whatever punishment you dish out. And Lamont did a good job in trying to do what he needed to do in the fight, but ultimately 2 straight draws, and you got to put your adversary away and ended up that same. So Roach turns 25-1-3 with 10 knockouts. As well, and Isaac Cruz improves. He's 28-3-2 as well, but he gets to keep the belt. Do these guys do it again? Do you want to see them do it again for another shot at it? Just steals away a lot of the thunder. Feel bad right there, but it's seen a lot of good sportsmanship between Pitbull Cruz and Lamont Roach. A shared respect. The guys was hugging at the press conference, really respecting each other's styles and whatnot. But them 2 youngsters, them guys put on a really good fight to benefit us. And ultimately, the judges, at least 2 of them, really 3 of them, kind of just upsetted us. And it is what it is. We'll see what happens from that point moving forward. I think there's rumors saying that they're looking at possibly doing it again. But would you want to watch that? That's the whole thing, to see if they can get it right. I don't know about that. We'll just have to see. All right, let's move on. Next topic of discussion in Ring Kings Boxing. Straight up shout out to boxing. You talk about O'Shaquie Foster. He got a matchup against Stephen Fulton. And Fulton thought he can step in there and handle the business. And O'Shaquie Foster just gave him a boxing clinic. He beat him up pretty good, pretty much the entire 12-round fight, and it was not even close in this matchup. You see it, they were scored 117, 111, 118, 110, and 119, 109 for the two-time WBC 130 titleist Shaqui Foster, who also claimed the secondary belt, the lightweight, with the win Saturday evening at the Frost Bank Center in San Antonio as well. Now, it was really interesting, right? The dynamics of the fight. 40 hours ahead of the opening bell, Foster had originally planned for the first defense of his second tour as the 130 titleist. Those plans were sent to hell by Fulton, a two-time division and current WBC 126-pound titleist who blew the weight at about 21 pounds, right? Well, actually 2 pounds, I'm sorry. An emergency call to the WBC by TGB Promotions paved the way for a secondary title at lightweight to be at stake for the evening's chief support. So adding insult to injury, Foster was given the full B-side treatment as he introduced first both at the weigh-in. You got to handle your business. Don't come up in there overweight by 2 pounds, a pound, a half a pound. If you're professional, make weight. That's how it goes. He didn't, and it cost him. So he channeled any frustration felt throughout the promotion, especially during the first week, and applied it to a beautifully boxing performance against a high-skilled team. So Foster was given that B-side treatment. But Fulton just got beat up pretty good. He used his massive reach to keep Fulton at range. He's used the steady jab to control the fight. And then ultimately, it was a boxing clinic from there on in, and it went 12 rounds. Fulton is now 2-2 in his last 4 fights. He won 2 straight ahead of the 8-round knockout. Lost to Inoue back in July of 2023. Since then, he's been on a path to nowhere. Fulton thought he can kind of move up, but 2-2 is not looking good for him. He probably need to switch trainers and do something different to kind of reinvent himself. As Shaqui Foster said, man, listen, you won't come to this side of things. You're going to understand it's not going to be easy for you. So shout out to Shaqui Foster. He dispatched Fulton and just gave him a brutal clinic fight long. Speaking of brutal clinics, how about this one, man? Frank the Ghost Martin returned in a knockout fight, brutally beating down Rances Bartholomew in a 140-pound matchup. And Frank Martin made a resounding return to the ring last Saturday against an age inactive opponent who could not take the shots. And this is one of the things when you had a fight, and we haven't seen Frank Martin in a while since he was knocked out by Tank Davis. We haven't seen him in a while. So getting him in a fight where he would fight a guy, he totally outclassed Bartholomew. He was on another level, but I could see what the trainers were trying to do, get him a fight where he can build up his confidence again. Referee James Green immediately waved an end to the schedule. 10-round bout. 4 seconds into the fourth, when Martin just dropped him straight, just hit him right to the kisser and put him down. Frank Martin hit him with back-to-back left hands, dropping him. So 19-1, 14 knockouts, sent the 30-4 and 115 knockout fighter down with 55 seconds left in the fourth. Lightweight contender abruptly ended the bout on that Cruz Lamont Roach undercard. So, that's what the Ghost was saying. Man, it felt good. It felt like I was like 140. I'm a lot more comfortable this weight. I'm a lot stronger. I got my speed. I felt strong tonight. I felt better than in the previous 2 fights. And Martin, who turned 30, hadn't boxed since Tank Davis did something to him, knocked him down in June of 2024 back in Las Vegas. So beating a 39-year-old Cuban fighter who won 2 titles in 2 weight classes, but hadn't fought in almost 20 months and was 1-3 in his past 4. What you gonna say about that? The guy is way over the hill. So it was a touch fight to get Frank Martin back into the fight game, to get him on to tougher opponents. And it's just one of the things, like, obviously being off since June of 2024, Frank was kind of really in his feelings. I mean, Tank Davis knocked him out. A lot of these fighters, man, a lot of these guys, as good as a Frank Martin, are, fighters that suffer a really challenging loss like that. When they lose to fighters by knockouts or get dispatched like that shake them a little bit, right? That shake them up a little bit. Look what happened with Errol Spence when he got dispatched by Terrence Crawford. He's yet to step in the ring since then. So when you see stuff like that, these really solid fighters that hadn't really get handled like that, it takes them a while to kind of gather themselves to get back at it again. We'll love to see how those guys rebound. Like a guy like Brian Norman, he's not on that level, but Brian Norman is usually the bully, the guy that usually pushed around, but he got knocked down, got embarrassed. in that fight against Haney. How do these type of guys respond after getting embarrassed in these ways? So Frank had a fighter that was over the hill, in my opinion. He knocked him out like he was supposed to, and now he's looking for better and higher fights moving forward. And hopefully we can see him in more challenging fights coming soon, and hopefully there won't be such a long layoff like we've seen him just pass up. So that's something interesting as well. All right, let's keep this thing moving, man, as we're going to talk about Jai, who had a fight as well, who had a really solid fight as he knocked out Hussein Sin Cara to defend that IBF title and the ring belts as well. He dispatched his fight as well. That Australian IBF and Ring Magazine cruiserweight champion Jai Opetaia claimed his fight like he said shit, and he claimed that he felt like shit in his latest title defense, yet he still ended the bout with one of the most devastating knockouts of 2025, fighting at the Gold Coast Convention Center against Turkish-German challenger Hussein Sin Cara. Opetaia recovered from an early shot to the head. He took that shot really well in the cut above his eyes, and he delivered a monster 8-round knockout through a vicious left-hand shot that went straight through Sin Cara's defenses and instantly put him to sleep. And I mean, he dropped him bad and knocked him the hell out. And it's definitely one of those things that could be a knockout candidate type of situation that had at the end of the day. But he felt like, man, listen, I could have did this better than this, right? He said he was disappointed with his performance, and he just felt like he could have done better. He said he felt like crap and in a ring and delivering the most brutal knockout. He said, you get these nights, we go back to the drawing board. I was very disappointed in myself. I felt like I left some people down with that performance. I made a lot of mistakes. I'm so pissed off. And what that mean is when Jai hits the ring again in terms of going back to the belt and training and back to the road and training and getting into practice and sparring and doing this thing, he's going to have more of a focus, because the next step for him, for the 30-year-old, is to take a shot at unifying his title with Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, who has the WBO and the WBA straps, and the man he's desperate to fight. But the Mexican is set to battle David Benavidez next May. Meanwhile, Swedish-born Badu Jack, who boxes out of Las Vegas, will put his WBC belt on the line in a highly anticipated rematch with Noel McClellan in Los Angeles, December the 13th. So he wants a unification fight. He wants Ramirez. I've been asking for them for a long time, and that's a part of the game. We want to see the cruiserweights get it together. And you remember one of the more really interesting cruiserweights of all time, is Alexander Usyk. And we want to see some of these guys really kind of get back to that. And the belts are split between all these different fighters. And like I said, a really big fight to see David Benavidez against Zurdo. It's going to be a fun fight indeed. And if we can make that happen, man, that'll be fun. But in the end, at some point, all these fighters, the cruiserweights, so we might see a unified champion once again in the cruiserweight side of things. Anyway, let's keep the thing going as we move on into this episode of Ring Kings Boxing. Y'all, please feel free to smash the like button as we move this thing along. And this is another fight just to talk about Lopez and Stevenson. Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevenson is set to do their thing on January the 31st. It'll take a big challenge on January the 31st when it makes a short trip to New York to face Teofimo for the super lightweight glory. This is a good fight. Stevenson will head into the contest following a successful 2025 campaign where he managed to defeat Josh Padley and William Zapata. And Padley stepped in just a few days' notice to take Shakur on. Despite a spirited effort, the former electrician was stopped in 9 rounds in Saudi Arabia. And this is going to be an interesting fight between the two. And I just got to give a shout out to Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez. This is a very dangerous fight for Teofimo. And I think people be sleeping on Teofimo's skills. He's a bit of an asshole and a jerk. And I think he takes pride in doing that. That's a part of his shtick. And a lot of people take pride. They want to see Teofimo Lopez get his mouth shut by a fighter. But Teofimo is a very good fighter. A lot of people don't want to admit to that, but the guy is slick and he's good. He's a very smart fighter in the ring. He's very athletic, and he's a chess player in the ring. Having a Shakur Stevenson in there, he will not underestimate, and the Shakur knows that this will be the biggest fight that he's had himself in his very young career. And we've heard reports of what he was saying about what he would do to Teofimo Lopez. But in the end, it's going to be interesting to see these guys get in the ring. And I have to give them a lot of credit for taking this fight. But anyway, listen with Teofimo Lopez as Max Kellerman tried, with his little messy ass, tried to stir the pot to get a response out of Teofimo Lopez and start a little mess. Listen to this.
Both of of those fights.
And Teofimo wanted Boots Ennis at 47. He pushed hard for that
You
fight.
were the one who pushed for Boots Ennis. By the way, I've tried to say goodbye already, but while we're on the topic, Shakur said you are delusional in a good way. In other words, you have a sense of yourself, according to him, that you think you're better than you are, but actually that helps you. It helps you rise to the level. What do you think about that? What Shakur said about you?
He's inaccurate because delusional is when it's not real. It's real. It's just what it is, man. I am who I am. I know what I am. And I think that's why, I look at it like this. I may get something out of it, but Crawford sent out one of his little guys to come and finish the job, and I think that's not gonna work. I'm still gonna be here, and if he's still gonna be in boxing, I would love to face him right after. He is the guy. He is the man of boxing, and I think if he could go up 3 weight divisions to fight Canelo Alvarez, why can't Teofimo go up 2 weight classes or 3?
Teo said he sent his little
First
mans after him, and he's going after the final boss. He's going after the final boss.
Earlier, Teo said that there was no extra motivation with Crawford. Now we see the truth.
Yeah. All right, Teo, always great talking to you.
Well, Lopez, that's Teofimo Lopez family when he's talking. And of course, Teofimo, like I said, is a slick fighter, a very intelligent guy, and is calculating. So, he is, people have accused Teofimo of cherry picking. All I know is that when you made a decision to take on Shakur Stevenson, they can't say nothing about Teofimo. And so in terms of him running away from fights, this is a very dangerous fight. Teofimo Lopez, he knows it. And I think he wants to be challenged. I think Shakur Stevenson has been asking for this type of fight for a very long time. I think one of his toughest opponents that he's had, like a guy like William Zepeda, but doing this type of fight against Teofimo Lopez, a very slick fighter that is really good in the ring, that can has the speed and athleticism to kind of duck and counter punch and do all kinds of things. So could Shakur. This will be a good test of boxing, and and like I said, none of these guys are really known for being knockout artists per se. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of anticipate this fight being one of those fights that kind of go all the way down. You know what I mean? To the full 12 rounds or whatever it's set up to be. But in the end, I think this is a fight to start off 2026. Many great fights in 2026, and I just got to say, man, I'm really enthused about with them getting ready to put this type of fight on. I think this will be an awesome way to kind of bring in the year. In January of 2026 with a Teofimo Lopez and Shakur Stevens fight. I'm just, like I said, I'm just loving that, man. And I think that's a great way to kind of move things along, to be quite honest with you. So keep on talking that crap, Teofimo and Shakur, because he was talking a little bit too. But it's going to be a good one, baby. Also, man, before I get off this topic, man, bit of a breaking news in the boxing world, man. After we just talked about the fight with Jai Opetaia taking on Sin Cara, who is having a time. I mean, it was a tough fight, and Jai really hurt the hell out of this guy, to the fact that we've had some a report indicating that he had to be hospitalized. And we're going to hear this right here, the fight right here. And it's coming right from the ring, describing the situation where he is after the KO loss, he was hospitalized with a brain bleed and fractured vertebrae. He really took the worst of it. Sin Cara will hospitalized for at least 2 days after suffering a brain contusion, small brain bleed, and fractured C1 vertebrae during his 8th round KO loss with Jai Opetaia. And the promoter, Mick Francis of Tasman Fighters, told the ring today, actually, Opetaia's 29-0 with 23 brutal knockouts, retained the Ring Magazine Cruiserweight Championship with a strong contender for knockout of the year and tougher than expected battle against Sin Cara, who was a very awkward fighter in the ring that gave Jai all kind of problems, but in the end, he was able to kind of land it on him and beat him. He cracked the C1, also known as the Jefferson fracture, is the base of the skull and can be life-threatening or even cause paralysis. So this is really tough here. And I think Jai, he finished the fight with a badly swollen right eye. It was a battle, and the fight ultimately ended up really just a brutal fight. With that victory, Jai Vince, he has a 7 successful defense of that title that he won back in 2022 when he just didn't. Now, after the win over Sin Cara, he wanted to fight. We talked about Zerto, but in the end, Sin Cara, really, who was a 40-year-old fighter, this more than likely should be his last fight, really got badly beat up in this fight, took a lot of abuse, and this is what we have. This is the the business of boxing, man, that is so hard to determine. So prayers out to that man to have a full recovery. Wow, it was a tough, brutal fight, and let's hope a fast recovery to Sin Cara. All right, so let's move forward, man, in the next article right here as we talk about Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul's upcoming fight. Let's just be honest. This is one of these fights that we talked about. I kind of admonished Jake Paul because of his choice in fights. He was trying to fight Tank Davis, and it looked like he was fighting somebody's little brother or something like that. It was just horrible. But in the end, it fell apart, and he chose a much better opponent in Anthony Joshua. Matter of fact, he's chosen one of the most difficult fights of his YouTube fighting career. And if Jake Paul can some kind of way make this a fight against Anthony Joshua, who is still a competing heavyweight, a multiple time champion, had the belt, multiple belts and titles. This guy is big time, has one of the most diverse and respectable boxing resumes of recent times. And for Jake Paul to set up a fight to fight him is really interesting. But Brady, Tim Bradley talks about he disagrees with the majority on Anthony Joshua. But what was interesting, family, is that I was listening to Jake Paul, and he had a rationale for why he thinks that he'll gain some type of advantage over Anthony Joshua. And I found it I was like, what is this guy doing? But he's really challenging. He's trying to really show the world that I'm actually better than you guys think. Listen, whether you believe it or not, but listening to the rationale of what he thinks is going to happen in this fight. Check this out.
I think the only person who's even remotely taken a risk like this was Canelo moving up to fight Bivol. A 7-pound difference. This is a 40, 50-pound difference. I don't think people really want to risk losing or having a tough challenge or risk getting knocked out. But then essentially you're not even doing what the sport is. You're not giving the fans what they want in these massive fights. That's why KSI is scared. Tommy Fury's scared. That's why Tyson Fury and AJ haven't fought. Like, the list goes on of how many major fights haven't happened because of people being scared. He looks intense, focused, locked in. He's obviously very, very tall. Looking up, my tallest opponent. My eyes are at his, chest level. But yeah, he's locked in. I'm locked in. I don't think there's fear in his eyes or in my eyes. But this is what we signed up for, and he's very tall. But that means I can use my speed and my size to my advantage. I think it's watching his Dubois fight, watching the Ruiz fight, even watching the Usyk fight. When you look at it, he's lost to guys who are smaller than him. I think it's his, it's his weakness. His kryptonite is the faster guys who don't get hit by his big punches. He's definitely a bit chinny. He's durable. He gets back up. He knows how to fight when he's hurt, and he's still dangerous when he's hurt. See holes where I can land big shots. I didn't think it would get this big, this fast. Some of the biggest fights in the world. I knew I would do great things. I just didn't know exactly what they were, but this is definitely surreal. I mean, he's
all right. So that's Jake Paul's rationale, man. As you heard from this, him breaking it down, it makes a really interesting and compelling part about Anthony Joshua and smaller fighters. Talked about, Ruiz, who was a smaller fighter, but Ruiz was heavy-handed. He had short arms and very quick fists. And he kind of blitzed AJ. Remember, Ruiz was a late make for that fight. I forgot which fighter he was supposed to fight, but he kind of stepped in there and underestimated Ruiz, and Ruiz took the belt from him. Right now, he ultimately had to get back, and he literally gave a clinic to Ruiz. The second fight, Ruiz came in overweight and did like a Buster Douglas type thing. But in the end, you can understand what he's talking about. He mentioned Alexander Usyk. Usyk is a tough fighter to fight for any one of these heavyweights, no matter who it is, because he's a slick fighter. He's a cruiserweight with heavyweight power. His skill set is unrivaled, and he makes all of these fighters, Dubois, AJ, Tyson Fury, all these guys look regular, and they can fight him 10 times and he'll beat them every time. And it's not like they're not hitting him. He takes the power, he counter punches, and he makes you pay if you try to punch at him. So he's a slick fighter. So watching these fights and the fights that AJ did lose, I don't see nowhere Jake Paul's nowhere near Alexander Usyk. Let's just be real on that. A lot of his fighters were guys that were over a hill, or guys that were fighting from different. That wasn't boxing; it was coming from MMA, doing something. It was just different. A lot of these guys were behind they were retired, and their time was behind them. Him fighting against AJ Joshua's a guy that's still active and still has something to show. So this is going to be a big challenge for Jake Paul. I applaud him for taking a step up. If he wants to be a fighter, fighting on YouTube, and I know the man built up a wonderful company. He's a self-made American story. He comes into this thing, and he from a business perspective, I don't agree with a lot of other stuff that he does from a business perspective. You got to respect what Jake Paul and his family was able to do in the YouTube game, to the point where he has actual real fighters. No disrespect, not saying he's rough, but guys that do this for a living in the boxing game, right? That fight the guys in front of them for the belts and all this kind of stuff. And like we said, Joshua had lost. A lot of people saying, hey, man, this could be one of these fights where you see Joshua really beat the shit out of Jake Paul. The thing is, Jake Paul has power and can fight. He can fight. So AJ, man, hadn't fought in a while. So this could be a situation where, some things can happen. I still think AJ wins the fight, but Jake Paul is not going to come in there and lay down. He's going to be trying to slip some punches, get up under him, and land them. And he's right. Joshua's chin is not all of that. I mean, so if he can get a good shot on him, you never know what can go on here, right? But, but looking at Dubois and all this kind of stuff, Jake Paul is not Dubois, and I don't think he'll do any of that. But it just does present in boxing, he has a puncher's chance to do anything. A well-placed punch could change the outlook on the fight. So it's a really big thing. Anyway, let's keep this thing going. Tim Bradley chimed in on what he thought about it and disagreed with the majority on Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul's outcome. So I played that little break by Jake Paul to give his thought process on as the countdown continues. Jake Paul and the opinions pile up. We are now just under 3 weeks from the 6'6" heavyweight man, Mountain Joshua, stepping into the ring against the 6'1" cruiserweight in Paul. The 8-round heavyweight contest headlines the MVP or most valuable promotions card for the Kashia Center in Miami and will be broadcast live on Netflix. The widely held view is that Joshua will be too powerful and too skilled for the inexperienced Paul, who failed to beat Tommy Fury back in 2023. Now, Joshua's 10, however, was brutally exposed by Daniel Dynamite Dubois in their all-British world clash last year, which ended in the 5th round knockout defeat for AJ, an ugly knockout, by the way. Unpredictable nature of boxing, along with his worn-out cliches, has led to some to suggest that Paul still has a puncher's chance. Indeed, he does. Former super lightweight and welterweight world champion Tim Bradley shared his thoughts on his channel. What he said is they did it again. They got another guy in there that's a little bit weak-minded. This is supposed to be an easy fight for Anthony Joshua. Shoot, if he goes in there and is who he is, right? An inexperienced Olympic gold medalist, experienced fighter that is bigger than Jake Paul, stronger than Jake Paul. He's an experienced Olympic man, but Jake Paul, bigger than Jake Paul, more skilled than Jake Paul. He's supposed to serve Jake Paul, right? Smash him. Yeah, easy work. That's what it's supposed to be. I'm definitely tuning in for this one. However, in a more recent video, the Hall of Famer has appeared to narrow the odds. It ain't no foregone conclusion that AJ is going to pull this you-know-what off. This is a dangerous fight for both of these guys. This is a 50-50 fight in my eyes. AJ points to his chin, meaning that Tim Bradley's saying that AJ has a weak chin. I don't know. I don't want to predict none of that. But look, if Andy Ruiz can get near him with his little short, stubby self and get in there and lay hands on Anthony Joshua, I think Paul has a damn chance, man. Paul's a little quicker on his feet, throws in combination. He has got that looping right hand and that he likes to set up. Anthony Joshua can get outboxed, but Jake Paul, I don't know. Bradley is the only one who's offering his thoughts on that. There's also other former guys that's throwing their thoughts in. But that's why I played it, because that is their talk. This is what a lot of the fighters are saying, or the people like Tim Bradley that are having these discussions that are talking about, hey, man, Jake Paul has an opportunity to do something because AJ has a weak chin, but you got to get to the chin. Like I said, Jake Paul picks these fights. He's a cherry picker. He's building the brand. He has a loss, but his brand is not him. His brand is to make people tune in to watch him lose. That's the whole thing, because he does this stuff, this gaudy stuff and all this stuff to make you hate him, to want to watch him. This is something that he got from Mayweather. Mayweather was one of these things. When he was Pretty Boy Floyd, then he kind of became and shifted his brand to Money Mayweather, being a little cocky and arrogant. And people would tune in and pay money to try to watch the next guy beat him or make him lose. So Jake Paul did pick a lot of these fighters and like this, and he picked Paul, and Paul picked AJ because he's seen something in AJ he can take advantage of. Let's just be honest. As would be thinking the distance in between talents between AJ Joshua and Jake Paul may be, and the resumes they're not even close in my opinion. AJ is an Olympian. Jake Paul is not. AJ has a respectable resume of fighting damn near everybody. Jake Paul does not. He cherry picks his fight, and it's interesting. But the reality at the end of the day is that Jake Paul seen something in making this fight with Anthony Joshua. Remember, he also tried to make the fight with Francis Ngannou, and Ngannou laughed at the money that he was offering him. But AJ says, I'll take the fight. Matter of fact, AJ's in between here. AJ was supposed to have another, like a tune-up fight before he fought Jake Paul. I want to say Anthony Joshua is supposed to have. He's supposed to have a tune-up fight between now and then. I'm going to have to look it up and see. But rumor was that was something that he was contemplating and doing. But because the next year, what he wants to do is, quite simply, he wants to keep this thing turning. And Eddie Hearns is still his guy, his promoter, is trying to set up something with Tyson Fury. And like I said, Tyson Fury has been set down for a while. Alexander Usyk dispatched him quite easily, and all Tyson is doing is running his mouth from the sideline. He doesn't want to fight anybody to fight him his way back into anything. He wants to talk himself into a fight, if not stand retired. And I understand that, man. If you could talk your way into a fight, he's going to try to do it. But anyway, Tim Bradley thinks that's going to happen. What do you guys think about that? We just have to see how it lines up. But Jake Paul ain't a dummy. He picked this fight for a reason. He thinking he can get to AJ and make something shake. So only time will tell, man, if that is really something we're going to see happening. But like I said, it's nothing new that I've seen from these guys in terms of them doing having these type of fights with them. I applaud them for having a tough matchup like this, and I'll be tuned in. I wasn't going to pay for that other bullshit with him and Tank Davis, but I will pay for this because I think this will be as real as a fight that you ever seen from Mr. Jake Paul. And speaking about heavyweights and potential fights coming up next, how about this one? Tyson Fury drops cryptic tweet or clue rather about boxing comeback. And of course, Eddie Hearn is a guy that is Joshua's man. Let's hear what old fast talking Eddie had to say.
And I know Frank, I think maybe last week said that he's spoken to Tyson, he's ready to come back. But then I think I saw something from Tyson himself saying, why would I come back? Is it kind of like, very simply, is it just status quo with Tyson? You're not sure, you've had no conversations, or is there something else kind of brewing?
The only person that's going to make that fight is Turki Al-Sheikh. That's the reality. Because the amount of money that Tyson Fury would want and the way that deal has to fall into place, he's perfectly placed and poised to make the fight. He has to do two things. Number one is he has to do our deal, and then he has to do Tyson Fury's deal. Our deal, which is not done, is pretty close. Like we will get a deal done, but that is totally irrelevant if Fury's not in. So Turkey's brilliant at that. And so once he does our deal, if that's because I think we're easier to deal with because we want the fight and we're in. Once we do our deal, all he's got to do is do the other deal and it's done. That and you'd back him every time to get that deal done. I don't really take much notice of what he says. I do. If he doesn't have the hunger to fight anymore, he shouldn't fight. As disappointed as I would be, and I'm sure the British public would be as well, it's a dangerous game. You can't be going in with, like, AJ's fired up right now. Like, he's really hungry for it. So he's very dangerous. You can't go into a fight half-hearted or not really up for it or just for a few quid. He's got money. You got to want to compete. You got to want to try and do a job on Anthony Joshua because that's how AJ feels. I've not actually heard AJ talk about any other opponent like I've heard him talk about Tyson Fury. He wants to do a job on him. If you're not really up for it, you shouldn't fight. And if he wasn't up for it, I wouldn't criticize him because that's his own individual position and opinion. But I think he's a bit more of a competitor than that. But you've got to want to come back. I mean, I like the fact in a way that he says, I want to fight Usyk. He should want to fight Usyk. Usyk beat him twice. AJ wants to fight Usyk. He beat him twice. But we also understand there's no demand for the fight, really. Now, the winner of AJ against Fury could definitely fight Alexander Usyk. I
did, and this is Eddie Hearn, and this, of course, Eddie is promoting Anthony Joshua. He's not promoting Tyson Fury. And I think Tyson Fury's had it. You know, you can look at Tyson's knees and his legs. He's been beat up a lot in these last fights, especially he had the fights that went with Deontay Wilder. He was able to beat Deontay, but he took a lot of punishment in those fights. I mean, you can look at a lot of the fights and seen with Tyson Fury prior to the Deontay Wilder fight. Even Otto Wallin really did a number on Tyson Fury, and I thought Otto Wallin busted up Tyson Fury, had his eye, gashed him up, had him bleeding, and they refused to let that fight be stopped but I mean, it was blood everywhere. The fight should have been stopped, but if it would have been stopped, Otto Wallin would have beaten Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury wouldn't have had the opportunity to line up the rest of these fights he was doing. But regardless, I digress. Regardless or not, Tyson Fury, 34-2. I think his record is with 24 knockouts. So, Tyson, respect to Tyson Fury. He's been retired for almost a year. Deontay Wilder beat him up in that fight really good. He had to fight with Alexander Usyk. Alexander Usyk beat him up pretty bad in the fight both times, knocked him down. Had skull dragged his ass. He was flim-flamming, falling everywhere against the ring ropes. And you can put Tyson and Anthony Joshua together and fight all you want, Eddie. Nobody wants to see, even if you match, AJ and Tyson together. That's old news. That was something that was supposed to be done at least 4 or 5 years ago when these guys was at the top of the prime. Tyson Fury is over the hill now. AJ Joshua is still a difficult fighter, but he's fighting Jake Paul. I mean, he's not fighting any of the top brass right now. AJ's not lined up for anything. He hadn't even been active, prior to this. So he's trying to kick off something because he's in the last leg of his career before he retires. But a lot of people, and include myself, think AJ's best days are behind him. And this is just a money grab with the Jake Paul thing. This is easy work for him, and it appears in his mind. And he'll be active next year in an attempt to make one more last move at trying to get a heavyweight title. And as long as Alexander Usyk is there, he will not possess it. But if Alexander Usyk retires like he's anticipating he's retired, then he would have more than likely AJ could have an issue because he still have to get through Daniel Dubois, who ultimately has taken a fall a bit after him getting dispatched by Alexander Usyk. So as long as Alexander Usyk is around, he'll get no belts. Now, in terms of that. Now, we know maybe AJ could set up a fight against Fabio Wardley. Wouldn't that be a fight? The British public or the European public would love to see AJ against Fabio Wardley. Fabio has the belt that Usyk dropped. So he became that, he has that belt. And AJ, I don't think he's a top contender, but if he could talk his way into a fight and Eddie Hearn doing all this talking, maybe he should fight Fabio Wardley for the belt. That's a way you can gain a title right there. That's something that he wants to do. So, talk is cheap, man, in the boxing world, man. You got to make it happen, set it up. But in terms of Tyson Fury and what we've seen him been doing it, him taking care of business. He also, I forgot that he had that the fight against Francis Ngannou, and Ngannou busted him across his head and dropped him. Tyson Fury, over the last several fights, have been knocked around. He's been knocked down. I mean, he's been beat up pretty bad, and I think he needs to cut it out while he's ahead with all this other stuff, sitting from the sidelines trying to finagle a one last payday. I don't think anybody wants to see Tyson Fury anymore. Tyson Fury is done for. The Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury thing is washed up. That's a fight for two former champions that for nostalgic purposes, not for a belt. Nobody's interested in seeing that. Maybe a few people in the UK is, or whatnot, but we're not interested in watching that kind of stuff worldwide unless you have a belt. So if Anthony Joshua wants to have a belt, maybe he should, after he takes care of business against Jake Paul, line yourself up against Fabio Wardley and see if you can get a belt that way. And I'm going to tell you something, Fabio ain't a pushover. So this could be a brutal fight for AJ and the suspect chin. Wardley not going to play with you. You've seen how he dispatched the likes of Joseph Parker, and Joseph Parker is still under fire for having a dirty test. That was a fight that I picked Parker because Parker was on a roll. He was on a streak with fights, and Fabio just went to work, man. It was a brutal fight. Fabio stayed on his feet and won that fight against Parker, and I just earned a ton of respect for Fabio Ward. Now that he's holding the belt, then maybe Anthony Joshua, if he's feeling froggy, jump over there and see if he could talk it up with Fabio. I think pretty much Fabio would love to see that. But anyway, with that being said, man, listen, that's all I got for y'all on this episode of Ring Kings Boxing. Feel free to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. By all means, feel free to share the show on your social media feed. Ring Kings Boxing is in the building. I am Big Q. And listen, fam, like I said, and let's give, prayers up to, Sin Cara after having all that stuff that happened to him, man. I hope that guy a speedy recovery. That is tough hearing from boxing. The boxing game is brutal. That's what people be talking about. You heard what Bud said on his go back at at the commission head about the $300,000 that he owed him. But he said, we ain't putting your brain and your body on the line like what you seen with Sin Cara. So it's a shame, man, but prayers to that man. With that being said, man, this is Big Q representing the Ring Kings boxing world, man. Ring Kings boxing, man. News that packs a punch. And we're going to highlight you on the next one. Much love. Peace.
Subscribe now and make Ring Kings Boxing your source for all the latest fight news.